Welcome to the Elk Talk Podcast with Randy Newberg and Corey Jacobson. Presented by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation.
The goal is, what little you and I know about elk hunting, we share with people.
I've got an elk building, it's like 120 yards away. What do I do? First off, the thought would never cross my mind when an elk's being 120 yards away to call anybody on a cell phone.
All elk?
All the time? Only elk?
Only elk.
Well, it's us having conversations, so we usually go down some rabbit holes, but
If you hunt with Corey Jacobson, you will find the landscape is full of rabbit holes. We're just going to make this up as we go.
and you look at it like, oh, that's a target-rich environment. But if you're trying to single one out, a solo target there is much easier to go into than a big group.
We record everything, so there's no BSing, no lying, no faking it with us.
Did we hit the record
I thought
button?
I forgot to hit the record button. If you want to know something about elk hunting, this probably isn't the podcast to listen to. Should we give them a list of all the other podcasts where they might learn something? The Elk Talk Podcast is brought to you by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, ensuring the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. To become a member, go to rmef.org.
And the podcast is also brought to you by onX Maps. And with onX Maps, you can know where you stand with the most accurate hunting GPS tech on the market with land ownership maps that work offline. Go to onxmaps.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 20% when you sign up for an app membership at onxmaps.com.
The podcast is also brought to you by Gerber. Go to gerbergear.com and learn about the knives, the Vital, the Big Game Vital, the Gator Premium, all the things that we use when we're out in the woods, and not just knives, but also some really cool multi-tools that they have.
We're also proud to partner with Sitka Gear. And if you go to sitkagear.com, you'll see their full line of clothing. And their tagline is turning clothing into gear. And they are doing that through advanced technology that allows you to stay in the field longer, hunt harder, and stay safer.
The Elk Talk Podcast is also brought to you by GoHunt.com. Go to GoHunt.com and sign up for the Insider. The Insider is changing how hunts and hunting information are found. No doubt about that. Use promo code ELKTALK, and when you sign up for the Insider, you're going to get $50 of store credit, mad money, in their gear shop.
And we are also brought to you by Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls. And Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls is the original designer and inventor of the pallet plate diaphragm that's completely changed the way elk calls are made and used. And to find out more and to order your elk calls, go to RockyMountainHuntingCalls.com or BuglingBull.com and use promo code ELKTALK, and you're going to save 15% on all of your elk calls and elk call accessories.
And with that, Corey, we are ready to get into it.
Let's jump into it.
Well, Corey, thanks for letting me travel to your snowy, beautiful place here is this considered central Idaho?
Yeah, I think central is pretty accurate.
I drove up here from Boise this morning, and I've concluded I'm not tough enough to hunt here.
Why is that?
It's too steep and too thick. At my age, I've turned into kind of a fair weather elk hunter.
And fair terrain, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would hunt here, but I'm looking at how thick it is. And archery hunting, yes, I would hunt here. Rifle hunting, I don't know that I would.
We've got some open stuff. You don't have to go too far to find the open rifle conducive terrain. So,
all right. Well, beautiful place.
It is.
Really a beautiful place. I can see why you moved here.
Yeah, I was hoping we would have some elk out in the yard here, but they're not here today.
All right.
So maybe they'll show up before we get done.
Well, if they do, we're going to have to go and move the camera.
That's right.
So that the audience really believes, because those listening, they're not going to see them anyhow.
No, we could tell them all about the elk that are right outside the window if we wanted.
We could make that story up right now. But anyhow, we were going through our outlines of things that we think are timely based on what the elk hunter is doing each time of the year, besides hunting.
Right. Which nobody listens to podcasts during hunting season, hopefully.
Yeah, we hope that you're busy hunting and not listening to podcasts. The sponsors probably don't want to hear that, but we would rather that you're out there elk hunting than worrying about listening to a podcast. But one of the things that I've focused on for years and years is getting a tag.
Yeah.
As fundamental as it sounds, the absolute thing you need to go elk hunting is a tag.
You got to have a tag. In every state that has elk, you have to have a license and a tag.
At least that's been how it's worked for me.
Yep. There are some who try to circumnavigate that and go without a license and tag, and I'm sure a few get away with it, but don't take that chance.
No, that's, we don't even want to start down the road of people who do that. But
that's a whole nother topic.
Since our last podcast, we kind of had to jump the gun a little bit because Wyoming, today, January 2nd, is the opener of Wyoming's elk applications, and it runs until January 31st.
Yep.
And we covered Wyoming on the prior podcast. So anyone who misses out on Wyoming,
it's not our fault.
There you go. That's our disclaimer, folks. It's not because we didn't tell you.
Yep.
One of the things we wanted to do, though, is to talk about an overall strategy and then in future podcasts, backfill that with each state, how it works, why it works that way, some little tips, ideas, thoughts that you and I have based on our years of applying and the experience that we have of maybe hunting some of those states. But
totally. Yeah, and that's, one of my goals that I set out to accomplish several years ago was to be able to successfully hunt an elk in every western state that allows some kind of over-the-counter or easily accessible tag for elk hunting. And
have you done it? With
the exception of Washington and Nevada, yes.
Okay.
And Nevada, I'm still in the process of drawing a tag there. Washington, I may end up hunting Roosevelt elk in Washington, or I'll just go over-the-counter, because they do have some over-the-counter public land elk hunting there, but Washington is not a destination state for elk hunters.
Right.
Unless you're Roosevelt hunting, I think it's definitely a better Roosevelt state than Rocky. But
yeah,
so we do. And you've hunted. I know you've hunted Nevada.
Yeah, but I've not hunted Oregon.
No,
and you have.
I've hunted it a couple times. So between us, we've got every state pretty well dialed in, with the exception of Washington, which I think we've mentioned it before, and I'll mention it again.
Yeah,
that needs to be at the very bottom of your list, low on the radar, not for hunting quality, just for the navigating the regulations and getting a tag and
the cost, everything else, and since Wyoming or Washington is later in the application season, you've almost filled your allowed time and budget with what I'll call more appealing states.
Totally.
And so, so that leaves. Let's see, we'll cover Arizona and New Mexico. I'm just moving from south to north here, not by any. I guess I could go by
deadline.
Yeah, by deadline.
Since
it's right here.
I've got it written down too. So.
Yeah, I've got it right here with the Go Hunt Insider. So it starts with Wyoming, January 31st. This year, Arizona's deadline is February 12th, and then Utah is March 7th, followed by Montana, March 15th.
Which we need to take offline and talk about our plans for this fall in Montana. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, just make sure I don't forget to get a tag there.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll talk units and everything so that the audience knows where we're going to be.
Right, where we're going to be.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have camp set up for us.
I can tell you where we're going to be.
Really?
It's going to be a general unit.
Well,
somewhere outside of Bozeman.
Wow.
That's... How easy is that?
Just show up in Bozeman and follow Randy's truck, right?
Look for a gold Honda Pilot with Museum of the Rocky license plates. It's my wife's rig. So let's see. Yeah, we got after Montana is March 15th. Then we've got New Mexico on March 20th. Colorado on April 2nd. Nevada, April 15th. And then we get way down here to Oregon, which is May 15th.
Yep.
And then even later than that, the straggler of the entire West is your home state of Idaho.
Yep. But you do find out if you drew a tag before season opens.
I know.
Just barely. But
Right. June 5th.
June 5th is the deadline, and you usually find out, I think it's about July 10th
Yeah.
when you find out.
Right. And a lot of people will ask me, why don't you hunt Idaho much? And for me, when we're trying to put together all of our video content, I need anywhere between me and guest hunters and family members and crew, I need about 12 to 14 tags a year between elk and deer, antelope, whatever. And I can't rely on Idaho as my fallback.
Yeah.
And it's in June because if I rolled the dice and waited until Idaho came around, I could end up with an empty sack.
Yeah.
I mean, my mailbox might not have a single tag in it. So usually by the time the Idaho drawing deadline comes along, we've already filled our calendar for the most part. And so when we apply in Idaho, it's swing for the fences, man.
Go for the best hunt.
Yeah.
If you don't draw, you got a plan in place. And
Yeah. So those are the states I think we're going to cover, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I think, it's worth mentioning with Idaho and several other states, and as we get into it, we're talking about controlled draw hunts right here.
Yeah.
And a lot of these states, if you apply for a controlled hunt and you have to buy a license like Idaho, you've got the license. You might as well plan on going hunting over the counter if you don't draw your hunt.
Yeah.
There's no reason to buy a license and sit on it.
Right. Other than I saw some grouse tracks in the snow driving up to your house here. When's your grouse season close here?
I think it closed 2 days ago.
Oh, man. I should have brought my 20 gauge and came down a couple days early. But
that's why I made sure and waited until after the first of the year to invite you. I knew if you showed up at my house, all the grouse within a 20-mile radius would be dead.
Keep your local chickens intact.
That's right.
Well, we're not going to cover all those in this podcast. We're going to talk about overall strategies and how each of these states, how budgets of time and money, how fallback options, all those come into play.
Yep. And why we apply for some states and don't apply for others.
Yeah. And I think in this podcast, the audience probably would be interested to know, because we're going to talk about generic strategy.
Yeah.
But I bet you they're going to want to know, well, Randy,
what do you do?
What do you do? And Corey, what do you do? So I think when we get to that point, the context has to be given that I've been doing the non-resident, my friend Kurt says I carpet bomb the West. That's what he calls it. I've been doing that since 1993. So some of the listeners, I may not even have been born in 1993. I don't know.
I was a senior in high school.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Gosh, I feel old now. But the point of that is, when I first started, it's not like I had a huge budget of time and money.
Yeah.
I said, okay. And it was quite a debate on the home front about putting together this little kitty of money to be mailing back in the day. This was before Al Gore invented the internet. So we were doing mail-in applications, write out your check, and pray to the good Lord that you did not overlook the application fee.
Yep.
Because
you got thrown out automatically. If the exact number wasn't written on the check, you got thrown out.
Yeah. So back in those days, it was pretty easy to mess up an application, and they were all done by paper. So I started out, I only had a couple states that I could do and a couple species. And every year I'd save a little bit more money and I'd be setting it aside. And my wife would be asking me, what's all this money you have earmarked over here? You just don't worry about that, darling.
I'm sure as an accountant, you didn't tell her there was a refund coming back on some of it, so you were able to allocate that much more the next year, right? And grow it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so the point of that of that background is that I suspect it was the same for you. It's not like one day I said, I'm going to do this, and all of a sudden I had this huge budget of money and time that I could throw at it. I knew that it was going to be a longer term plan and process.
Yep.
And I hope that those listening look at it that way. That, okay, you've said many times the goal is that people hunt elk
as often as they can.
Yeah.
Every year. I mean, ideally, and I know for some that's not realistic, but at least every other year.
Yeah. Because I think in one of the podcasts you mentioned that one of the tragedies is that people don't build up a vault, an encyclopedia of elk hunting experience, and then they draw the glory tag.
Yep.
And
they don't have a quality experience because they don't have any experience.
Yeah. That you don't want to cut your teeth on a early rifle tag in Arizona.
I mean, you maybe.
But I mean, the reality is you're going to be better served if you've got years of failure.
Yep.
Leading up to that point.
Yep. It'll make that hunt seem easier, and it will be much more rewarding.
Yeah. So for me, and even back then, I started out with a short term, a midterm, and a long term plan. And what would that be? 25 years ago, 26. Wow. This will be it'll be 26 years from this season. And since then, I've cycled through my Nevada points, my Utah points, my Arizona points. I would say those were my long-term swing for the fences sort of plans. And I did not expect Colorado to be a long-term plan when I started. At the time, you could draw, I think Colorado had started their point system in 88 or 89.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah. And so I didn't feel I was that far behind the curve. Well, it took 20 points before. Well, I didn't add Colorado to the mix, I don't think, until 96. So or maybe 95. I burned 19 or 20 points in 2006 because of point creep. I thought this was going to be every 3 years, I'm going to be burning through the Colorado system. Nope. So Colorado started out as a short-term or mid-term option, and it ended up being a long-term option because I ended up in what most people call no man's land.
Yeah.
Not enough for those premium units in the northwest corner of Colorado. And so every year you'd punt and say, I'll just sit on my money and get another point and get another point.
It was the same for me with Colorado. We put in, I don't remember when we started, I've got 17 or 18 points now.
Now you do?
Yeah.
Oh. And I bet when you started.
Oh, we were looking at drawing, Unit 2, Unit 10, northwest corner. And I think it was 7 or 8 points as a non-resident to draw those hunts when we put in. And so our strategy was we'll build up to 8 or 10 points and draw the premium hunt in the state.
Yeah.
And I'm still 10 years behind. I haven't gained any ground since I started putting in.
Yeah.
And it's, that point creep you talk about. Every year it takes one more point to draw those premier hunts. And, it's a whole nother discussion about bonus points, preference points, and whether they're worthwhile or not. But just know that if you're going to play the game, if you're looking at it right now and you say, I want to hunt this unit and it takes 8 points to draw, in 8 years, it's probably going to take 12 to 16 points to draw. So you got to kind of plan that into your strategy, which I don't think you and I, either one, did when we started in it.
No, I didn't really. And at the time, Wyoming did not have a non-resident point system when I started that. I think their point system came in place in 2005, something like that. And since then, I always viewed Wyoming as a short-term strategy that within 3 years, I was going to burn through my points.
Yeah.
And I've been able to do that a few times in Wyoming. I've hunted twice in the Bighorns, once in central Wyoming, and once in the Wind Rivers. So I've had, since Wyoming started their point system, and I apply in the special draw, which we covered that last podcast with Wyoming, I've burned through 4 hunts in Wyoming, which, that's an average of about every 3 years, which is kind of what I expect in a state like Wyoming. This year I'm at 1 point. I don't know what I'll do.
And we've hunted Wyoming 6 times in the last 8 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they've all been, just general tag, general hunt. But it's
you guys have done remarkably well.
Yeah, it's good hunting. It's tough hunting. We talked about it in the Wyoming podcast. But the beauty of Wyoming is you can draw a good hunt. It's not, I'm not going to say a quality hunt where you're going to shoot a 300-inch bull every year or anything like that, but you can have a good elk hunting experience in Wyoming, and there's several other states as well. But it is a draw hunt, but it's one of those short-term strategy locations for me.
Yeah. Well, that's how I've always looked at Wyoming. And I will always view Wyoming as a short-term thing. There's just way too many good hunts in Wyoming that can be had with 3, 4, at the most 5 points. In your case, you're talking that general tag, sometimes 1 or 2 points. I have this irrational fear that I'm going to die with points in my pocket.
Burn them up.
Yeah. So short-term, I use Wyoming as one of my short-term strategies. And you living in Idaho, me in Montana, folks who live in Wyoming, folks who live in Colorado, they can use their home state as kind of their short-term strategy.
Right. Or their guaranteed backup. If you apply, for instance, if we apply for Wyoming this year and don't draw it, I know I can buy an over-the-counter tag right here out my back door and go hunt.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I think where I explained that Colorado was intended to be a short-term strategy and it became a long-term strategy. I was in the short term for the long term. That's one of the things in business school they teach you. If you're in the short term for the long term, you probably are going to fail. But that's just how it worked out in Colorado. But now that I've kind of washed all those points off my board on Colorado, I view Colorado as another short term.
Yeah.
I don't see ever having more than 2 to 3 points in Colorado. Right now I'm sitting on 2 points going into this year. Depending on what I find out in Wyoming, I might just go for one of the early rifle hunts in Colorado. Not because they're fantastic hunts, it's just lower tag numbers. And so it's a higher quality experience.
Yep.
Being realistic is to me, is one of the keys to having a fun hunt.
Yep.
If you say, I'm going to go and burn 2 points in Colorado and I expect to shoot a 340-inch bull, well, it could happen, but odds
Probably not.
Yeah, odds are your expectations are going to result in frustration.
Yeah.
So,
on the flip side of the short-term, long-term, Colorado was your short-term. It took you 19, 20 years. I was kind of the opposite looking at Arizona. Mm-hmm. And Arizona was my long-term strategy. It was the first state I started applying for and building points in, anticipating, back in 2000 or so 18 years ago, 19 years ago, that it would take 8 or 10 points to draw a good quality archery rut hunt.
Yeah.
And we drew the first time with 4 points and then drew again with 3 points. So my
September rifle rut tags.
September archery rut tags.
Yeah.
Right. So we got lucky. We
clean living, my friend.
Well, it was due to somebody else's errors both times. So we took advantage of that, and I was looking at it as, hey, by 2010, somewhere in there, we're going to hunt Arizona for the first time.
Yeah.
And we drew a tag in 2005.
Wow.
Completely unprepared. That was back when they came out. I think it was July when you found out if you drew Arizona.
Right. Yep.
And so I only had a month and a half, 2 months to put together my first out-of-state hunt for elk, and it happened to be Arizona Unit 1.
Wow.
And had an incredible hunt, it opened my eyes to what there was outside of my little backyard in Idaho.
Yeah.
And it made it hard to come back and hunt over the counter in Idaho. And, the second we got back, we already had a plan in place. We're going to put in again, and we're going to build up. And it'll take 8 or 10 years, but it'll be worth it. And we drew with 3 points.
Wow.
And again, went into that hunt with better expectations of the hunt itself and realistic expectations of what we wanted to accomplish.
Yeah.
And had an incredible hunt.
Yeah.
And now I'm back at 10 points in Arizona. And I think we could draw, according to Go Hunt, I just got on there last week, we could probably draw this year, but I'll probably wait and hold off another year.
Wow.
So
You see, you still have patience.
mine's more of a calendaring thing. So
yeah, but the other thing that you have is you have teenagers.
Yeah.
I don't. I only had one, which most people say if you only have one kid, you're really not a parent because they don't have anyone to fight with, and you're going to blame the right kid.
It's always their fault.
You've got 3.
Yeah.
So you got your hands full at this point.
Right now, it seems like our hands are very full.
Yeah.
But come September and October, I have a truckload of hunting partners too. So it does extend my time in the field because my wife is very supportive of, if you take one of the kids to go do something, go and do something.
Yeah.
And so it makes it enjoyable for both of us, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I started out with Arizona as a long-term strategy. And is 10 years long-term?
I think 10 plus, I would consider that my long term.
So my 10th year in Arizona, I drew. And I didn't want to draw. I think I've said this on podcasts before. I'm not sure if I've said it on ours, but 2005, the year you're talking about, that was a year Arizona got sued
by United States Outfitters out of New Mexico. They sued them for discrimination against non-residents.
Right. And so that resulted in Congress actually passing a bill that said, you know what, states can discriminate, to kind of confirm what the Supreme Court had already said. Anyhow, that year, Arizona got rid of the non-resident cap.
Yep.
So...
and it's important to mention that they had already conducted the draw that year, and then were sued and had to go and add additional tags. So the quote on all the tags was 40% higher because of that.
Yeah. And so I had Nevada as a long-term plan also. But Nevada took my elk points at 7 points in 2005. So Nevada, I find out in May that I've drawn. I call my buddy Jerry in Arizona and say, hey, I can't deal with 2 premium elk tags. What would you suggest I do? And that was back before you had the quality and depth of information that's at our fingertips today. And Jerry, who's from Williams, Arizona, says, well, apply for Unit 10 late rifle or early rifle. You'll never draw that. As a non-resident, you only have 10 points. So, okay, that's what I did. I ended up with 2 elk tags. 2 long-term plans became reality in the same year, 2005. Wow. I had an early rifle rut tag in Unit 10, and then I had one of the November Nevada hunts. So even though the point of all these examples is, even though you say, all right, this is my short-term, midterm, long-term, your long-term might become short-term or midterm. And your short term might become midterm or long term.
Totally, yeah.
So, which is, to me, why I apply in as many states as, even along the way, I was applying in as many states as my budget would allow. How often do you get the question, well, what happens if you draw 2 tags in the same year?
We get that a lot, and it's happened a couple times, and it puts me in a bit of a bind, because I do... I try to be, and I say this, and if my wife's listening, she's going to come running and say, did you really just say that on the podcast? I try to be respectful of the time that I'm away from home. Yeah. Especially because September, I would love to fill all 30 days with hunting elk in September because they only bugle for so long. Yeah. But I also realize right now in the time we're in life and, where we are with our children, I need to be here. Yeah. And it's not that I don't want to be. I don't want to make it sound like I wish I was hunting all the time, but I do have to be considerate of that somewhat. And so I do try to maybe go for a big hunt and go for a mid-range, midterm type hunt. And then knowing I probably won't draw the big one, there's a chance I'll draw the mid one, and then I'll have over the counter. And if I do happen to draw both of them, I can make 2 hunts happen and still be able to come home for a week or 10 days in between and make sure things are good here. So I can handle 2 decent hunts where I have to invest some time. If I draw Arizona, I don't want to go down there for 5 days.
Right.
I want to be down there for 10 or 12 days and make sure I'm putting in the time for that quality type of a hunt. But if I was to draw Arizona and Nevada both in a September timeframe hunt, it would be difficult.
Yeah. Well, that's where some of the states have a pretty liberal policy of returning tags. And Arizona now has the new point guard system. It's almost like insurance for, what is it, $5?
Yeah, 5 or 10.
Something.
Yeah.
That if you draw and you can't make it once every 5 years, you can turn your tag back in and get your point restored.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's an option that is just new in the last 2 or 3 years. Nevada lets you turn your tag in right up, I think, until the day season starts.
Yeah. So I've actually heard of people going down and scouting the unit they drew the week before the hunt opens and not seeing the quality of animals they want or it being too hot or dry, and they call and turn their tag back in the day before season.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Never went that far.
Yeah.
And then Colorado has this new returned license list. I'm not going to get into great depth on that because I want I want to have a few secrets other than you can turn your tags back in Colorado now. And you have been able to for a while. Utah, I thought it was a crank call, 2014.
Yeah.
I come back from my daily hike. Look, I'm one of the people who still has a voicemail or an answering machine on a landline. Yeah, I know. You're laughing. If my wife is listening, she's going to say, quit talking about that because it's the crux of much of our marital debate.
Is she for or against the answering machine?
She's for it.
Okay.
I hate it. But the reason little side note, the reason she was for it is that her mom liked to call on that line. Well, her father passed away in October. And now her mom is living with us. So I've got some leverage here. I'm getting rid of that landline. But anyhow, I come in and I look, there's a new message since I'd left the house. I click on it and it's like, hello, this is so-and-so from Utah Division of Wildlife Resources. Someone has turned back their archery elk tag and you are next in line. Please call by this day or you will go to the next person. I stopped. I'm like, you're kidding me. What? I looked at the calendar. Boy, I got a full calendar this year. I don't care who else is going to draw elk in Utah with 5 points or whatever I had. I'll never draw 5 points.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll take that tag, ma'am. Here's my credit card. So there are some of those options that are out there that might make your long-term plan a shorter-term plan.
Or it might change your plans in the middle of your planning process.
Yeah, because here in Idaho, you guys have that second draw.
Yeah. And honestly, if the Idaho Fish and Game wanted to make more money, they wouldn't publish the draw odds for that because you don't have very good odds of drawing because there's 1 or 2 tags that don't get picked up. In Idaho, if you draw a tag, you have to pick it up and purchase it by August 1st, regardless of when the hunt opens. And if you don't, those tags get forfeited and go back into a second draw pool.
Right.
And they publish a list on about the, 10th or so of August, and you have until the 15th to apply for them. It's a very short window, and you apply, and you might pick up one of those tags. So you can actually apply for the same tag twice if there are leftovers. But for the most part, in the really good units, and it still surprises me, there was a Unit 54, which is the premier archery unit for elk in Idaho.
Yeah.
There was a tag left over last year or the year before that somebody didn't pick up. There were only 5 tags issued for the unit at one point. I think there's 15 now, but that tag didn't get picked up, and it went into the second draw. And I don't even remember. I think there were 1,500 or 1,800 people put in for that one tag in the second draw. So it's not very good odds, but there is an opportunity to draw a tag that didn't get drawn in the first round.
I always apply in your second draw because I've already bought my license to apply in the first draw. So what is it, $5?
Another $6.
Yeah, I look at it as though I'm just buying a raffle ticket.
Yep.
And
somebody's got to draw, and every year I know somebody who draws a leftover tag. So
yeah. So those are I guess the whole point of that part of the discussion is to have people thinking about all right, what's my short-term strategy for where I can go hunting every year?
Yep.
And those sometimes become the same as your fallback option.
Yeah, and over the counter, you can buy a tag in Idaho or in Colorado or in sometimes Montana.
Yeah.
Those are, like you say, it's a fallback. And for me, that's my every year I'm going hunting. And those are the states and the tags that I'm counting on if I don't draw anything at all.
Yeah. And with that, my midterm ones are a little bit more flexible in what and how I do it. Sometimes it becomes a midterm option just because my calendar hasn't allowed for it to be a short-term option. It's very possible that Wyoming or Colorado could migrate from a 1 to 3 year short-term option to a 4 to 9 year midterm option.
Just because you don't get an opportunity to use the points because you're filled on your schedule and that point rolls over. And
whatever you do, if your budget allows it, don't pass on buying a point or acquiring a point because you'll regret it someday down the road. There's a thread out on my Hunt Talk forum right now of what would you do differently if you knew today, or if 20 years ago you knew what you know today.
Yeah.
Almost every reply has been, I would have started acquiring points sooner. In fact, Kirby from Colorado said, if they start selling points for skunks, I'm buying points because you never know when some rule is going to change where you can apply your skunk points towards an elk.
Yep. And that's going back to the whole bonus point discussion. So many states start down that road, not looking ahead 20 years.
Right.
And they have to make changes to the system. And it always makes people upset because you've invested for 15 years and all of a sudden the carpet gets pulled out from under you. Arizona did it. Mm-hmm. They went from their normal 10% cap on non-residents to allowing more in the first round pool.
Right.
And that changed. It made, I think, 3 to 4 years longer to draw tags now because fewer tags are for the guaranteed preference round.
Right.
And that happened to us. We were sitting on 3 years ago enough points to draw the unit we wanted to draw, and now it bumped it out 3 or 4 more years. And my backup plan. So when I drew Arizona, I was going to draw a quality hunt, and then from there, I was going to go every 3 or 4 years and draw another tag in Arizona for a lesser quality hunt, but still, it's Arizona, so you can still say quality in that sentence. And now that unit that used to take 3 points to draw takes 7 or 8 points to draw because of that change. And so each of these systems are not necessarily set for eternity.
Yeah, they are dynamic rather than static. And that's just, you have to go into it knowing that's a possibility.
Yep. It's an investment. I mean, it's like any investment. There is risk, and you might go into an over-the-counter situation after investing 10 points in a state.
Yeah. Well, the 2 states that don't have points that we're going to talk about are New Mexico and Idaho. So if you're new to the system and you feel you're way behind the curve, think about New Mexico because $65 refundable license. I still don't understand why New Mexico makes that a refundable license for non-residents. In other words, when you apply, you can check the box that says, if I don't draw one of the permits, refund my license.
Yep.
And so you end up paying an application fee and maybe a small transaction fee. You got to front all the money, but boy, it sure is a cheap place to play the game if you've got enough to front the money.
Yep. Yeah, you front the money, send it all in. If you draw, you're already paid. You get the license and tag, and you go hunt.
Right.
If you don't draw, you can choose to get everything sent back. And for me, I would never go to New Mexico if I didn't draw an elk tag, at least in my current application strategy.
Yeah.
So I would take the refund and get it refunded. Of course, the last time I checked the box I wanted a refund, you and I drew, and they charged my credit card. So,
well, that probably won't happen again anytime soon. So don't block that out on your calendar. But that's where, for me, New Mexico ends up higher for new applicants with no points than Idaho, because Idaho,
you have to buy the license.
You have to buy the non-refundable.
Yep.
Whereas New Mexico, it's refundable. Idaho, it's non-refundable.
And it's $100 more.
Yeah, it's $160. So back to your point earlier, if you're going to apply in Idaho, make it your fallback option because you've already bought the license. Apply for a limited entry tag, and if you don't draw, make that your fallback option where you're just going to go.
Or if you know you're coming to Idaho and you're already guaranteed to buy a license, put in for the draws. Before you buy your tag, put in for the draws, shoot for the moon, try to draw a quality hunt. If you don't, you have the license, you buy your over-the-counter tag and go hunt.
Yeah, you're going anyhow. Yeah. Well, earlier we were talking about, before we turned on the camera, how much money we think is reasonable for someone to start out with. Kind of like if you need your little pool, your pot, your whatever you want to call it, to at least start building points and give yourself a chance to start with a short-term, mid-term, and long-term option. And your initial was $2,000, which I think there's going to be some sticker shock for most elk hunters wanting to get started in that. And I think we realized that a lot of those applications don't overlap, that you'll have your refund back before you have to apply for the next one. So I think you can cut that pool in half, and $1,000 set aside will get you into a pretty good strategy. But I would even say you could get away with less than that and still build a good plan. And the reason that I think I would say 1,000 is a minimum is, and I'm just going to walk through the calendar. Okay. Apply in Wyoming, because that's first out of the chute. You're going to have to front the regular price fee, which I should know that off the top of my head.
$783, I think.
And then you're going to have to, this year, you're going to have to add 2.5% for a transaction fee. So that's going to just off completely, gone is 20 of that. Plus, you're going to want to buy a point, which is the point fee still $50?
Yeah.
Okay. So right there's $70 of your 1,000 gone as a fixed cost, whether you get a refund because you didn't draw or not. So you will know about that in, let's say, I think the last February
Friday 22nd, I think last year was when we found out for Wyoming.
Yeah, it's usually the last February. last Friday in February. Sometimes it's a Monday, but anyhow, you will know. The bad part is the Arizona deadline is before that. In Arizona, you're going to be fronting a license cost there of another, I think it's like
$163, something like that.
And then you got a $15 application fee. So if you want to play the Arizona game, you don't have to front all the money, but you do have to buy the non-refundable license. So if I had $1,000 to work with, I would do the Wyoming thing. I may not front the $50 for the point right away, because you can do that later in the year. You can do that in July. So that way, if I'm out less upfront money. So I'm out $800. I can do Arizona, and I can buy my non-refundable license, my application fee, and it's going to eat up most of the rest of my $1,000 until my Wyoming refund comes back in March. So I would be playing those two. This is just Randy going through if I only had $1,000. So, and I'm going to go on the premise that I didn't draw. So, all right, I didn't draw Wyoming. I get my money back. I'm going to use that same money to apply in New Mexico, because there's no point system. Like we were just saying, I can get my $65 license fee back, and I got to front everything. So
use that $800 that you get back from Wyoming to now apply. It's about the same price, I think, in New Mexico. The tag is $7 something.
Something like that. So I'm going to be real close. And I'm going to roll the dice and see what happens there. In New Mexico, I'm going to find out sometime in May. The only remaining draw deadline that I could take advantage of if I wanted to would be Idaho after that. I'd probably wait and see what happened in New Mexico. So now I've built points in Arizona, I've built points in Wyoming, And I've got my hat in the ring in 3 states: Wyoming, Arizona, and New Mexico.
3 quality elk states, too. Yeah.
And I'm still in it for $1,000. Now, if I had $2,000, I would also add, since Colorado changed it last year, where you only got to send in the itty bitty little amount, I'm going to go dig, I'm going to shake the couch
find
upside
another
down.
$40.
Yeah, somehow I'm finding that minimal amount to at least buy a point in Colorado.
Yep.
That leaves out of the picture Utah and Nevada and Montana. And the reason that if I was on $1,000 budget, that Montana wouldn't be there is the general tag, it's over 80, sometimes 90% draw results. So building points in Montana really isn't that helpful as a non-resident. You could, every year you have really good odds of drawing it when it fits your budget. Nevada and Utah are just such long, odd kind of just...
Yeah, you can draw a tag in either of those states because it's a bonus system. So it's just, you have a chance in every draw. But the reality is there's so few tags and so many people putting in that your chances are just incredibly low. Really low.
And Nevada, you're paying, I think it's $150 upfront license fee.
Yep.
Plus application fees. Utah, you're paying, I think, a $60 license fee.
Maybe,
something. And then you're paying application fees. So those 2 states, if you're on a tighter budget of $1,000 or $2,000, those are such long-term opportunities and so expensive up front, they would be the last on my list if I was working from a limited budget.
Totally.
So what else does that leave? Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon. It's take it or leave it.
Yeah.
It's Oregon has a lot of opportunity. Oregon has a lot of over-the-counter tags for both Roosevelt and Rocky Mountain elk. The draws in Oregon, you've got the Wenaha, you've got Mount Emily, you've got, a handful of units up in that area that are good. But it's kind of the same thing. You used to be able to draw the Sled Springs unit archery for 2 to 3 points as a non-resident. When I first started putting in, I drew it with 10. And it's at least that now. And so looking at that hunt, it's not a 10-point quality hunt.
Yeah.
You spend 10 points on that, you're going and hunting. There's a lot of other people's there. There's limited access because of the timber company that owns most of the unit. And so it's just the draws in Oregon. You've got to buy the license. It's kind of like Nevada, Utah situation. Don't put in Oregon for the draws. But if you want to hunt Oregon over the counter, you might as well put in for the draws and build a point since you're buying the license anyway. Right.
If you view Oregon as your fallback safety net option, then
build
do
points.
It. But to just do it for the purpose of building points, I'm not very price sensitive when it comes to this stuff. At this point in life, when your kids are out of college, your house is paid off, all these other financial obligations are taken care of.
And you live to hunt.
Your price sensitivity gets to be a lot wider.
Yeah.
But even at that, limited entry draws in Oregon, I bailed in 2007 or 8, whatever it was. I could not justify it.
And I'm still doing it, and I don't know exactly why. Other than I heard about a unit that doesn't take too many points to draw that has some potential.
Okay.
And so I've already got enough points to draw it. It's just a matter now. I'm just sitting on those points until I can fit it in my calendar to go there and check it out.
Well, we just walked through what all you could do with $1,000 budget. And as your budget increases, because each year you're kind of rat holing a little more and a little more and a little more, probably within 3 or 4 years, you're going to be at a point where you've squirreled away enough money that you could add Nevada, you could add Utah, you could, maybe Montana becomes your, hey, I'm going to go there every year kind of thing.
And I think, even stepping back, maybe if you don't have $1,000, there's still options. And it may not get you in the draw necessarily, but you can start building points. And that's really what I did with Arizona when I started. I wasn't planning on drawing. Yeah. When I drew the tag, it was like, oh gosh, my credit card just got hit. Now I've got to cover that. So I wasn't counting on drawing right then. I was just planning on sending them my $160 every year. And back then, I think it was $130 or $140. And when you do that, you get a point. And so I was just planning on doing that, buying the license and building my points. So I was investing $150 a year in Arizona. And from there, I expanded. So you could easily not even buy a license, not even apply, but buy an elk point in Wyoming for $50.
Yep.
You can buy a point in Colorado for 40, 35, 40, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
You can buy a point. You could do it in Utah. I wouldn't suggest it just because it is so long term that even though it's inexpensive to buy the point, there's really not a need to. So I would at least be buying points in Colorado and Wyoming for less than $100 a year and building those so that in 4 or 5 years, when you are ready to draw, when you have $1,000 set aside to buy the license on the tag and go on a hunt, you've got the points and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
So at the very least, I would do that. Oregon's $160 for a point, which I probably wouldn't put that high on my list. Montana, they changed it, I know.
Yeah, Montana. I should know Montana. I live there, but I apply as a resident. So I thought last year, the year before, they made it so you could buy a point.
You can buy a point now.
Only.
And it used to be you had to buy the license, which the combo or the elk non-resident license was what, $800?
Something. We wrote the book on how to lay the leather to non-residents.
They did. I just remember getting my refund of 80% of my application to be able to get a point. So it was $160 just to maintain my point after I'd applied.
Yeah.
And that was my only option for building points in Montana.
Yeah.
They have changed it, so it's much more user-friendly now to get a point there.
Yeah. Well, what I'm looking at here on my laptop is Go Hunt has really good strategy articles.
Yeah.
This one is top over-the-counter elk hunting opportunities in the West, which is kind of a fallback. And then it's got an article about short and long-term strategies for hunting elk every year. And I don't know if Brady stole this from us, or maybe we're going to have to read this in more detail and see if he's plagiarizing. I'm sure he's not, but yeah.
So you're saying somebody could just sign up for Go Hunt Insider and not have to sit here and listen to us for an hour talk about it?
They probably could, but they also wouldn't get the perspectives and the little tidbits. Well, maybe they would. There's so many articles they probably could.
Yeah.
But
they wouldn't get your personal application strategy.
Exactly. Even though Brady and Chris and those folks at Go Hunt have asked me, would you chronicle your application strategy through the year? I'm like, oh, no, then people are going to know unit numbers and everything else. But sometimes I have, and I'll use it New Mexico, for example.
Tell them the unit number?
No.
I was going to say, I'll tell them the unit number that we applied for.
Well, it's people know that. It's out on YouTube. Because it turned out to be such a hard hunt. We're like, everybody should apply here.
No, that's where I was going with this is we aren't applying necessarily for these home run units. No. We're kind of taking a chance a lot of times that here's a unit that might have some potential that's easier to draw. And a lot of times we get there and find out our over-the-counter backup option would have been 10 times better.
Yeah, no doubt. Last year I drew archery in New Mexico again. I drew my first choice. I did not expect that. What I need to do is party app. Every time I party app in New Mexico, I draw. When I go individually, I never draw. Yeah. And I'm sure someone will come up with a conspiracy theory about that. But last year, went down there. It was so tough, so hot. And Marcus, my camera guy, him and his wife in Montana on general tag shot 2 bulls the first weekend. Yeah. And we're scratching our heads saying, why did we just drive 1,300 miles and drag llamas down here into this hot, forbidden country? We should have stayed at home. We probably would have killed some. Yeah. But
and I think that's your plan for this fall, right?
It is my plan for this fall. I'm not leaving Montana to go somewhere else for archery elk season. If Montana's on your list, our archery elk season is the best elk hunting in Montana. Way better than the rifle hunting.
You get like 70 some weeks, don't you, to hunt archery?
It's only 6, Corey.
Only
but
6.
If you're an elk, it probably seems like 70 that someone's out there harassing you.
Or if you're a hunter's spouse waiting at home for
that's
your spouse
true.
to come back from elk hunting, it might seem like 70 weeks. But.
Yeah. But New Mexico, I have a short, mid, and long-term strategy within my application because you get 3 choices.
Yep.
My first choice in New Mexico it depends on what my calendar allows for. Most years is a swing for the fences. My second choice is, pretty decent odds. They're as good as maybe odds can be for a state that only gives 6% of their tags to the self-guided non-resident. And then my last choice is usually, hey, at least I'm going kind of option. So you can almost have a short, mid, and long-term strategy within your application for that state, at least for states that let you look at multiple choices before they go on to the next person.
And New Mexico, do they look at first 4?
First
3. And Arizona looks at your first 2 choices.
Nevada looks at your first, you get 5 choices in Nevada before they go on to the next one. Those are the only states I think that
put multiple and have a chance of drawing your second choice.
Right. All the rest of the states, I believe, look at all the first choice applicants. Yep. And then after everyone's first choice is filled or not filled, then they say, are there any tags that didn't get filled in those units? And that's what we'll do as the second choice.
And keep in mind, we're talking elk applications.
Right.
Some states are completely different between their elk application and their mule deer and antelope. Different dates, different formats that they draw, all of that. That's so we're talking specifically elk draws.
Right. Yeah. Don't take this as the gospel. If you're going to go and apply for some other species in some of these states, you might end up disappointed. You might miss a deadline.
I don't see the box for mule deer or antelope here.
Yeah. Well, do you want to get into Arizona on this podcast?
I think Arizona can be its own. I think we can. There's enough to talk about with Arizona and the way that they do the draws and everything there. We can
make that
circle back around and give some more specifics on Arizona.
Okay. Are you wanting my?
I was going to say let's talk specifics here.
All right. So what I should do is I have on a flash drive here. If I ever lose this flash drive, it'd be as bad as losing my GPS. On here I brought this just worried that you might ask me to do this. It's everything, every unit I'm considering for every state this year.
Broken down by how many points, what the draw odds are.
Everything. It is not healthy to be this obsessed with drawing tags. I'm sure that if my wife saw, she knows I spend an awful lot of time on this stuff, so she's probably thinking, if it keeps him happy, what do I really care? Keeps him out of my hair. But specifics, I'm like I've said, I'm a resident of Montana, so that becomes pretty much my fallback option. It's something that I know I'm going to have every year. But even with that, in my home state of Montana, I've got a bit of my own swing for the fences idea because I know I'm going to get my general tag. So, and our general archery tags are really good. So I apply for some pretty difficult hunts in my own home state.
Difficult to draw hunts.
Yes. And I'll go back to that and say that draw odds as a general rule are a function of multiple things. Access, whether it's public-private access or topography. You take units that have big chunks of public land, easy going, those are going to be really, really hard to draw.
Yep.
You take ones that have some private public problems or just nasty.
Vertical.
Yeah. Those are going to be easier. I look at some of the units in Colorado. It's like, why is that one so easy to draw? Oh, yeah, there's a lot of 14ers there.
Yeah.
And it's all wilderness or something. A lot of times I look at what the resident draw odds are because the residents know.
They know.
And why am I saying this? This is one of my little unshared secrets prior to now is people will ask me, why did you apply in that unit? Well, have you seen what the resident demand is?
Yep.
They know something.
The locals know.
Yeah. Don't just rely. And this is another thing on my list of what can impact the ability to draw is these research services and application services. They serve a purpose. You see that?
I do. And as much as I like spreadsheets, that looks very confusing.
That looks really messed up, doesn't it? Yeah. So this is all the units being considered by species, elk.
I was going to say, it's not just elk.
It's
great big title at the top of the spreadsheet.
Yeah, what does it say?
Year of the elk.
Yeah.
So you're focusing on elk this year.
I am. And then the first column is all the elk for each state and where we're going to apply. For me, for Matthew, for Uncle Larry, and then all my guest hunters down here. Bo Beatty, Ed Eason, Mason, Ryan, Kurt, Jim.
Why am I not on there?
You're not on there because I can never pin you down to anything.
Whatever, we made a plan.
I know.
We've got a plan. Why am I not on that list?
Well, you'll be on the list.
I'm your fallback?
Kind of. Sorry, don't mean to break it to you that way. But
Well, it just dawned on me. What happens if you fill your elk tag in September?
Then you come and fill your elk tag.
Well,
so that's easy enough.
All right. So maybe I'll be rooting for you to fill your elk tag in September, and then I can be more selective in November.
There you go. However you want to do it. I'm open to whatever. But I'm doing a lot of elk hunting this year.
You are.
So when you asked me, Randy, what is your strategy? And the strategy, so here, this spreadsheet has a calendar.
Wow.
And it's where are all these opportunities that I have openings or what's already locked in? What do I have to be really careful at? You notice how secretive I am? I pulled up the 2018 version. So this is all history.
I was looking at that with excitement. Now I'm... I just saw you had it extended clear out to January. There's opportunities to hunt clear out into January.
Oh, yeah. But that's not elk. That's deer.
But there are elk hunting opportunities in January.
Really?
Yeah.
Where at?
Here in Idaho.
What are you talking about?
There's some cow hunts.
Really? I did not know.
Yeah.
Oh, well, in Montana, we have some cow hunts also. Yeah. Whole nother topic of you don't want Randy to dive into shoulder seasons. I would.
Well, that's been our number one requested topic that we touch on is strategies for hunting cow elk.
Okay, I'm good talking about cow elk strategies, but I'm not good talking
breaking down the draw odds.
Well, and then Montana has this kind of goofy thing that I don't want to. It's called the shoulder seasons, and no one needs to hear my dissertation about that. But suffice to say that it's low on my list of things that I'll ever be caught doing. And I have no problem if someone else goes and does it. And it's not because it's cow elk hunting. The reason it is because it's a politically mandated season rather than a biologically mandated season. So I exercise my American rights and say, you know what, I don't have to do anything I don't want to do.
That's right.
So, but for those who go do it, I'm happy for them. Fill the freezer.
Yep.
So, all right. Now,
Did you put in your 2019?
Yeah.
Is that?
So I just pulled up. I was trying to hide it from you.
Where's my phone? I need a screen capture. Take a picture of this.
Let's see. I don't see 2019 on here. Maybe I don't have it with me.
Man.
Anyhow, I know what my strategy is. We can go through it, but here's how I approach it. And this is just for me only. Wyoming, I really didn't like when Wyoming came up with this split between the special and regular.
Yeah.
That's still so hokey. I think it's stupid, but I don't live in Wyoming. I'm not part of the Wyoming legislature, so there's nothing I can do about it.
And they're probably grateful for that. I would imagine you would cause some ripples.
Yeah, but I just don't think that the draw odds that someone gets should be a function of how much money. Yep. But I don't write the rules, so I'm at a point in my life where I can afford it, so I apply in the special draw.
And basically, you're paying $400 more,
something more,
just to get in the pool that has most of the time better draw odds.
Most of the time, not always, and that's that prior spreadsheet I have all the Wyoming random draw odds by special and regular, and have the equation that if regular is greater than special, greater draw odds in the random, highlight that one. So I can quickly look and say, whew, but I can do that with my Go Hunt now also. So that was just a bad habit I've been carrying forward. Now through the filtering version on Go Hunt, I don't have to do it that way. Yeah,
you can select both regular and special and see what you can draw.
Yeah. So Wyoming is first out of the box. I've got 1 point. What I'm going to do this year in Wyoming is I'm going to look at the random odds, and I'm just looking and saying, you know what? Which one of these would be a really fun hunt? I don't care if the odds are 2%.
Yep.
That's what I'm applying for. I know I'm not going to draw because I won't have enough points in the preference part of the draw, and it would be a really big coup if I were to draw one of the random ones. My wife, though, this is interesting. So my wife has 3 or 4 points in Wyoming. This year, she said, we should go hunt together. Because she's got deer points, antelope, and elk points.
Wow.
But here's her qualifier, but no camera guys. So she shot a lot of deer. She's really a marks person. I don't want to say marksman, sharpshooter, maybe the better way to say it. So maybe before January 31st, her and I'll do a party out, but she doesn't have very many points, so I'm not sure what we'll do.
Yeah.
But so that might be an option, but the likelihood is that I'm just going to take my 1 point, throw in and say, all right, this unit takes 10 points. I know I'm not going to draw with one, but maybe I'll draw one of the random tags. So Arizona, this is where, when we get into more detail in Arizona, I'm really in a quandary in Arizona. I've got 3 points because I drew an early rifle tag in 2017.
Yeah.
So this is, people ask me, why do you spend so much time on Go Hunt? Well, that year, Go Hunt had kind of buried in there this limited opportunity hunt, and we'll get into that in Arizona. I looked at that, I'm like, whoa, that's an early rifle hunt? And it's only taken 2 to 3 points to be in the non-resident guaranteed pool?
Yep.
Oh, I'll try it. I drew. Now they've changed that hunt, but anyhow.
And that was the particular hunt I was talking about that was going to be my fallback archery hunt every 3 to 4 years that now takes 7 or 8 points to draw for archery.
Yeah. So in Arizona, I've got 3 points. I've got the loyalty point, I've got the hunter ed point, and I've got 1 point from 2018. So I'm really in a quandary there because I love the late rifle hunts. But there's a part of me that wants to go do late archery in November.
Really?
Yeah. I love spot and stalking elk. And I had a late rifle hunt in a unit. And I went there scouting before the late rifle season opened and the late archery season was open. I saw a lot of bulls that I think were stockable.
Yep.
Then the blizzard came and they dispersed and I couldn't find any of them in the rifle season. But so there's a little bit of a quandary there. We've filmed 3 of those limited opportunity hunts in Arizona, and a lot of people might be asking, what is that? Those are units that have less, they're not part of the core elk area.
Yep.
the elk have dispersed out there and are now competing with public land grazing with cattle and stuff. And so there's pressure to keep their numbers low. And here's the beauty. There's another one of these things where I'm thinking, why am I sharing this information? But I am. It's not subject to the 10% non-resident cap.
You put in equal opportunity with everyone else.
Yeah, you're looking at me, Corey, as though, why did you just say that?
There's a little section in the regulations with limited opportunity hunts. And
right. And
every once in a while, those pop up with a good hunt.
Right. And non-residents could draw all the tags in those units, those hunt codes. So for those of you who are wondering how it is that we end up filming so many hunts in Arizona, that's a little nugget there to look into. And yeah, we've not shot any big whopper bulls there. Every year, though, someone shoots a really nice one. Yeah. And you never know if that's going to be you. Yep. So that's my quandary in Arizona this year. And then we go to Utah. I'm in the, because I drew.
The wait.
Yeah, I'm on the waiting list in Utah. So I don't have a strategy there, but I have a strategy for my son with his 16 elk points. I think we're going to throw in for him with one of those late November hunts. Yeah. Because I just like late rifle hunts. To me, those are the more I do them in Arizona and Montana, in other places, the more I'm coming to believe that November is an easier time to kill a bull elk than any time. So why do I want my son to be carrying around more Utah elk points? So
burn them.
Yeah. But so I don't have a Utah strategy. I think I said what my Montana strategy is. I have 3 points. I'm going to just try for one of the really hard to draw rifle hunts and know that as a resident, even if you were a non-resident, you got really good draw odds for the general tag. That's what I'm going to focus archery hunting on the general tag. And much of the really good core elk area in Montana, you can hunt with that general tag. So
and we'll get into more detail when we talk about Montana, but they have separate points between the controlled draw hunts and the general hunt. So you can actually build points for the general license that a non-resident has to apply for, which is separate than the points you would use to try to draw a controlled hunt in the state of Montana as a non-resident.
Yeah. That is why we mess it up. That's what happens when your legislature decides they're going to tell your game department how to do things.
Yep. Let the government manage your animals, which means they manage the money that the animals produce.
And whoever has their ear down at the coffee shop. Yeah. I did not know that you could get a PhD in wildlife management strictly by getting elected to your state legislature.
Oh, absolutely.
I had no idea.
Absolutely. But it comes with the certificate. Yeah. It says you've been elected.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, here are your qualifications.
Here we're on another tangent. So that takes care of Nevada or Montana. And then
New Mexico you talked about.
Yeah, New Mexico. I'll do a really hard one, a less hard one, and then an easier one is my 3 choices. And they're all going to be late rifle. I'm done archery hunting in New Mexico. I've been lucky and had a few of them, but I tell you what, with the weather, it's a roll of the dice.
Yeah.
And boy, when you hit it, it's sweet. But the odds of
it. My one experience in New Mexico has me not overly excited to jump back in.
Yeah. And then, so let's see, New Mexico. Colorado. Yep. Depending on what I find out in Arizona and Wyoming, if I draw one of those, I'm probably going to just buy another point in Colorado because my calendar will start filling in. Yeah. But if I don't draw any of those, Colorado, I'm looking real hard at either a 4th season hunt in November or a first season hunt. And I think the dates this year for the first season are October 13th or something like that. And it runs for 5 days. And I'm not going there because I expect to shoot a really big bull. I'm just going there because the weather's usually nicer. There's still a little bit of bugling going on. And because it's all limited entry draw, there aren't that many people in the woods like you see in the 2nd and 3rd rifle seasons. So Nevada, I got off the wait list in 2015, so I could apply in 16. So I've got 3 points in Nevada. Yeah, having 3 points for elk in Nevada is you may as well have 0.
Yeah. So they square your bonus points there. So you have 9 chances, which sounds really cool until you realize the guy that has 8 bonus points has 64 chances.
And the guy with 20 bonus points has 400 chances. Yeah. So for me, what I'm doing in Nevada is there are no bad elk hunts in Nevada. I've been lucky to help people on those hunts. I've had my own tag. I spent a lot of time there deer hunting with a bow. I love archery mule deer, and I see a lot of elk when I'm doing that. So I'm going to go hunt, and I'm looking at what are the best draw odds. I don't care what weapon type. Right. And I've done that, and the insider tells me that the best draw odds are the archery hunts that have August dates. Yep. Why? Because elk aren't bugling. I get that. If I'm going to, and it's an expensive tag, it's a $1,200 tag. So most non-residents look at Nevada and say, if I'm doing that, I want a good tag. Yep. A tag with great dates. So if I were to luck out and draw in Nevada, it's going to be an archery hunt in August, and I'm going to spot and stock them. Yep. So, and then that leaves Idaho. After that, I'll swing for. I'm giving up on moose on Idaho.
And you see they're proposing to reduce
the
number of moose and mountain goat tags this year.
All the more reason to give up on it. I'm trying to think how many non-resident licenses I've bought thinking I'm going to draw a moose tag here. And every year I apply, the units I apply for, the odds are always 15% or better. Yeah.
There's several units that are 35 to 40% draw odds for moose.
Yeah. And I've never drawn since 1996, I think was the first year I applied. And every once in a while I'd get frustrated and I'd throw into the deer, elk, and antelope draw. I'm done with moose here. Heck with it. You guys can have your moose.
Well, the wolves already took them all.
So I'm going to do deer, elk, and antelope. I'm going to swing for the fences for elk. I think I'm going to try one of your November hunts. I mean, I'm probably not going to draw, but because we're capped to 10%. But unless you tell me something else,
we might have to
off camera,
we might have to talk.
He's not gonna share.
Well, I'm not going to share specifics.
Okay, so that's my plan.
That's your strategy.
That's my strategy. And if I don't draw anything, I'm going to have my Montana general tag. There's a very good chance I could end up with a Colorado over-the-counter tag. I've hunted the third rifle season there many times. I'm probably going to do that if I don't have any other elk tags. And maybe you'll talk me into coming over here to Idaho for a general tag. Yeah. So I could still have 3 elk hunts even if I don't draw anything.
Yep. And that's the beauty of over-the-counter tags.
Yeah.
Is those are always there and guaranteed.
Yeah.
My strategy is a little different this year, and similar to you, I have a short term, a backup plan that's guaranteed, then a midterm and a long term strategy, and I try to keep points built up so that I always have something on the horizon on the long term, something quality every 3, 4, 5 years, and that would be Arizona. New Mexico, which again isn't really a strategy, but applying for a premium unit, premium hunt in New Mexico, or Nevada, which I think I have 5 points in Nevada, so I've got a ways to go there. But those are some of my long-term quality strategy hunts. And I'm to a point now where I've got 18 points in Colorado, so I can't draw the good quality hunt.
Right.
But that's a long-term strategy at this point.
Yeah.
So I've got enough points to draw the hunt I'm looking at there. I've got enough points to draw the hunt I'm looking at in Arizona, which will be a quality hunt. And I have enough points to draw the hunt that I'm looking at in Oregon, which is we don't know. There's potentially.
Potential.
Yes. So I've got enough points to be guaranteed to draw those. I've got points I could draw in Montana. I've got 5 points in Montana now. So the hunt we've talked about, I could draw that. So I've got some guarantees with the points that I have, but we're going to do that Destination Elk day-by-day series again this fall. And so trying to strategize a game plan for that changes because of who we're going to hunt with, where we want to hunt, what we want to accomplish with those hunts. So my goal for this fall is to hunt all 3 species of elk. So we've got Rocky Mountain, we've got Roosevelt, and then Thule. And
before you get to that, I got to throw in, I always apply in Kentucky too.
No.
It's $10.
Yeah.
Why not try?
Yeah.
I mean,
your odds just went down by 400% by bringing that up.
Everyone who does the same thing is like, Newberg, you are an idiot. We knew that before you said I'm an idiot, folks.
So no, my strategy, I'm still working on it right now. But in order to hunt Thule elk, I'm looking at the options, and they're not good.
Yeah.
California is the only state that has Thule elk.
Right.
They only offer potentially one non-resident elk tag in the draw for the Thule elk.
Yeah.
And that could be a cow that somebody applies for and draws. Once one non-resident has drawn an elk tag, they issue no more non-resident elk tags.
So if a non-resident drew that one tag as a cow tag, there'd be no non-resident
bull tags. So you look at landowner tags.
Yeah.
And landowner tags get very expensive very quickly because of the fact that that's your only option.
Yeah.
And most of those are relegated to private land, which I've never hunted elk on private land, and I'm certainly not above it. One of my goals is to shoot a Thule elk, just to be able to say I've hunted all 3 species of elk.
Yeah.
And, I think the timing's good with Destination Elk. It would be really good to talk about the conservation efforts in all 3 species and what's different about them, and how the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation's hunted or conserved them and helped so that we have hunting seasons for them. So that's kind of the letting the cat out of the bag on our plans for Destination Elk. So that changes. I have to look at Thule elk now and figure out what my options are there. Roosevelt elk are a lot easier because they're over the counter in Oregon or Washington, or California has Roosevelt elk as well.
Yeah.
So that's, kind of plan 2 is the Roosevelt elk. And with being gone on 2 out-of-state hunts, that kind of relegates me to hunting at home for Rocky Mountain elk. So depending on what happens with getting the Thule tag, we probably will just get a point in Wyoming and a point in Arizona.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to draw one of those 2 tags and have a California tag and an Oregon tag as well. So
you'll figure it out.
I will. I've got to kind of lay back. I'm not shooting for the moon this year. This year's more of a lay back and build points in most of the states and do over-the-counter hunts for all but the Thule and figure the Thule out. So if anybody's listening and knows any of the ins and outs, I have several friends who are helping me right now figure out the Thule, but I know that the state draw is not the route that I'm going to count on.
Going to be hard.
Yeah. So that's our plan, and then I'll apply for a license in Montana, and you and I have talked about doing a late season hunt for elk there, which again, be a rifle hunt. I've only ever shot 1 elk with a rifle in my life, so that'll be a fun experience.
Yeah.
And then, we'll do the hunt of a lifetime hunt here in Idaho. I'll hunt with my children here in Idaho. So we'll get plenty of hunting in, but my draw strategy this year is definitely off from normal. So I'll buy a point in Nevada, a point in Oregon, a point in Colorado, a point in Arizona, a point in Wyoming.
Wow.
And
your sack full of points is going to get a lot heavier after this year.
And that's, part of the strategy again of next year I'll probably draw potentially Colorado and Arizona. And I'll be out of long-term strategies at that point because those are my hunts that I've waited for.
Yeah.
And now Nevada will be at 6 or 7 points, and it will take that place of my long-term.
So you've intrigued me with this Thule thing. It's never been on my radar because I looked at what the options are.
Yeah.
I'm like, But So Destination Elk, you guys, what did you guys do, 40 days last year?
We hunted 24, 25 days. We ended up with 19 episodes.
Okay.
And it was really, insanely, popular is not the right word. People loved it, though. Just to be able to follow around, and the day-by-day hunts. Mm-hmm. We did day-by-day season, so it drug out our whole elk season. Right. And people are able to follow along from day one. Every day we hunted elk. Yeah. And, it's neat. We hunted Roosevelt elk for the first time. But this year I thought we have to have some kind of a focus, some kind of a topic, some kind of a theme that we're following. And so I thought hunting all three species is something that doesn't get talked about. And just talking about the differences in how they respond, differences in, the rut, differences in the body size, the antler size, in addition to all of the conservation differences and the habitat and terrain challenges that each of them face. Yeah. And to be able to highlight that and hopefully bring some light to not only the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation's efforts in conservation, but just in opportunities and other things. And, in future years, we might look at hunting, back east or something. Right. Or Alaska has Roosevelt elk and some different, off the grid hunts that don't get a lot of attention. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about off the grid stuff. Yep. That's next year we've got one that's so off the grid. In 2020, people are going to think I've lost my mind, and it's not elk, so it's not relevant to this discussion. But those are fun ones to think about and plan around. But Kentucky. Someday I want to go to Kentucky and hunt elk in the worst way. I don't know why.
See, in my eastern state destination would be Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. I guess my passion for elk in Kentucky comes from being on the board of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation for 6 years and seeing and knowing the people who really put their shoulder to the wheel on that. And it's a remarkable story of how it happened, and thank goodness for hunters having positions in policy. Yeah, and that's really how it happened. And so even if I didn't get to have the tag, if some close friend I knew had the tag who did not mind being imposed upon with our cameras, it's a story that I would love to go and tell. It is so remarkable. And I've talked to the Kentucky, I think it's Wildlife and Parks is what they call themselves there. Some amazing people work there who are so passionate about elk. And who would ever think that we would have, depending on which survey you're talking about, 11 to 14,000 elk in a state east of the Mississippi River. That is just flat out cool. Yep. So that story to me, as you were talking about the Thule elk conservation story, the Kentucky elk conservation story is one that to me is very intriguing.
Absolutely. So, well, I think we're probably ready to wrap this up.
You think so?
On that note, do you have a Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation access tidbit to share?
I do, but can we do the Sitka question of the week?
We can.
Before we do that one?
Yeah, so I printed off a list of them because I know we're going to bust through some podcasts here. So there's several of them here, but I think to tie in with what we're kind of talking about, we did have a question here, and this question came from Cody Jones, and he wanted to know the best advice for application strategy for a younger but experienced elk hunter looking to put in and hunt multiple states. So, Cody, I think we just spent about an hour and 20 minutes going into your question there. Hopefully something that we've talked about here is helpful, especially for someone looking to just get in on the points game. So we'll go ahead and bypass that one. I think, as we start talking about the different states and going into details in each state and offering information, and we're going to talk a lot about Go Hunt Insiders. We talk about each of those states because you and I both use that personally, as part of our application strategy is, first thing we do is get in there and look at what our options are and opportunities.
Yep.
But this question comes from Clint, and it's a longer one. But he says, you and I make clear disclaimers that the methods and opinions we put forth are not necessarily the best or the only way to hunt elk.
For sure, that's a big disclaimer.
Yeah, but that's the preferred method that we hunt with. Mm-hmm. And he says, yet these methods, for example, aggressive calling and use of technology advances such as trail cameras and mapping products, are exactly what other successful and well-respected hunters such as Chuck Adams and David Peterson claim are detracting from the hunt and changing how elk behave. Which leads to the question, do you and I, the hosts, think presenting information in a very accessible and consumable format is going to benefit elk in the long run?
Benefit elk or elk hunters?
Elk. So elk. I guess he follows up and says, or will elk continue to alter how they communicate and be pushed deeper into the hinterlands and potentially less suitable habitats as a result of incessant pressure by everyone with a smartphone and a pocket full of elk calls? Further, do the hosts, you and I, feel that outlining so much information detracts from some of the mystery associated with the hunt and accumulation of a lifetime experiences gained afield or by mentors?
That's a really heavy question.
It is.
We could make a whole podcast out of that. The easy answer for me is that I operate under this premise, and why I donate so much of my time to causes like the Elk Foundation is that if we're going to have more conservation advocates for the world of elk, we need more elk hunters. And to have more elk hunters, we need more successful elk hunters who are willing to, because of their success and their enjoyment of being out in the elk woods, they start doing more for elk.
Yep.
To me, that builds a bigger pie rather than each of us trying to fight over a smaller piece of the pie.
Yep.
And you probably get it. I know I get it. Why are you saying that? Why? Like on this podcast, I talked about it. I threw out a couple little tidbits out there, and people will say, why? Let people figure that out themselves. That's all fine and dandy. Maybe when I was growing up hunting, we learned from our dad or our uncle or whoever it was in our family, maybe our mom, maybe whoever it might be. But that's less and less the experience of today's hunter. Every year, there are 200,000 adult onset hunters that take online hunter ed, and nobody reaches out to them and gives them any information of how to be a successful hunter. Okay. Yeah. Hunter ed is about firearm safety and a few other things.
Nothing about hunting.
So we've got 200,000 people who want to be here and support and advocate for wild places and wild things. And we say, we're not going to teach them anything.
Yeah,
Go figure it out.
Secret.
Yeah. I get what the person is saying. And it's a very interesting question. I at times wonder that, but the state agencies hopefully are managing based on what the resource has as a harvestable surplus.
Yep.
Does that mean that there's going to be places where the state maybe does provide more opportunity than some would like? Yeah, probably. Do I think that elk are going to change their behaviors and run and hide? Well, there's not a lot of places to run and hide in today's world, whether like it or not. I mean, the other answer, or another way to spin that question is, well, do you think it's helpful that there's all this workout, physical training, train to hunt, to, mountain tough, all these really cool things that I think are helping people live healthier lives and enjoy their hunts more? The case could be made that kind of stuff
totally
changes how.
And I think that's included in that question.
And so Shane Mahoney is a close friend, and fortunately, he's very generous with his time to me. And we talk about this technology stuff. And he said, the first time somebody napped a sharp point on a rock, that was the first hunter who decided to take advantage of technology.
Yeah.
And the next guy was the one who said, I'm tired of throwing a spear with a sharp rock on the end. I'm going to tie a string to two ends of this pine bough and let it dry, and I'm going to shoot arrows at it.
Yep.
I know that sounds like a rationalization, and maybe that's what it is. But I think that there's no doubt that there are some people who are shortcutting it based on how easy it is to get information these days. But if you measure whatever detriments you feel might be there compared to what the benefits are of having more advocates for wild places and wild things, I think the net benefits are overriding as a positive.
Yeah,
that's my long-winded answer.
That's a great answer. No, and I'm kind of the same. I look at it, and my platform has always, since I started Elk 101, been about educating elk hunters. That's what Elk 101 stems from. The whole 101 in it is the educational side of it, to be able to share my experiences with others in a way that will contribute to their success. And I think in hunting, we're seeing a shift a little bit. Hopefully, I think we're in a lot of different industries. It's very secretive. You don't let anybody new in. You protect what you have, and if somebody else is successful, it takes from your success. And with hunting, I don't think it does in any way. And yes, there's certainly the big picture if you're looking at it, and I can see where his question's coming from of if we get too successful, too many people being too successful, we're going to have limited opportunities.
Right.
And that's a reality. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a bigger threat to those opportunities is habitat encroachment,
loss of public access.
Loss of access, all of those things that now we have a voice in politics by adding to our numbers, by getting more hunters and recruiting more hunters. We now have more people who are able to take a voice on the political side and make sure that we're protecting habitat and preserving what we have and conserving what we have. Yeah. And Will Primos, I had an opportunity to sit down with him for a couple of days at his home in Mississippi, and we were just talking about, our children, talking about what we do with Hunt of a Lifetime and taking youth with life-threatening illnesses hunting. And he said it's so important that we forget about ourselves and think about that next generation.
Right.
And he said we have to teach this next generation to love what we love, because if they love something, they'll protect it.
Yeah.
And I think that
with
us sharing information to help other people be successful, yes, we're absolutely shortening the curve for some people. But elk hunting's tough.
Yeah.
And the people who are going to be successful are going to be successful whether it's today or 10 years from now. And yes, we might shorten the curve for them, but I don't see success rates changing. I really don't see them changing that much based on technology, based on, anything that we're giving out as far as information. And like you said, the net benefit to gaining a stronger, united voice of elk hunters to be able to protect and conserve elk and become members of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and support the archery industry and the gun industry and support the local state economies that rely on hunting to manage their big game. I think it's providing longevity for what we love.
Yeah.
And not threatening it.
Yeah, one of these comments that I had written down here, and I didn't know that was going to be the question, but it kind of falls in line to that, is, and I just wrote down, being a public land elk hunter is a lifetime commitment. There is no elk hunting for dummies crash course that is instantly going to take you from no experience to 30 years experience. No. Lots of resources to learn from, but the best teaching tool is the failure that comes with hunting elk as much as your time and budget allows.
Absolutely.
And then I wrapped it up by saying, if taking an elk is just a checklist experience for you, reach out to me. I have a list of friends who are outfitters. They'll provide you a great experience and you can check it off the list. Those people are normally one and done. fine. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's, if someone just says, hey, I want to go experience it one time to see what it's all about, hey, great. What I'm interested in is creating people who view this as their lifetime passion and their lifetime activity. Yep. For them, for their friends, for their family. They live it, they eat it, they breathe it. And those are the people who are going to show up at the local Fish and Game public meeting. Those are the people who, when you need some spare labor, some volunteer labor to go remove a fence in a migration route, those are the people who are going to be there. You need a fundraiser for your local banquet that's going to raise money, and I don't care if it's for the Elk Foundation or if it's for your local shooting club or whatever it is. Yep. Those are the people who are going to do that. And if we think that as a population of America that us being a shrinking smaller percentage is good for us, yep, I would just disagree with that premise.
Yeah, there might be fewer people in the woods. Success rates might, go down. Overall harvest might go down, which for us, it's like, man, there's more elk. This is all great, great, great. Until you run into that brick wall and realize we just had our rights taken away because we didn't have enough of us standing up for something we love.
Right. Or we aren't doing the things that those who came before us did. Think about how challenging it had to have been in 1937. With the American Depression is still in everyone's mind, everyone's face. People who cared about hunting and conservation said, we're going to impose an 11% tax on ourselves. That person didn't do that for themselves. Yeah. They did that for us who are here today enjoying it. And that's a different thing than sharing information. But there's never been any generation of hunters, and hopefully never will be, that say, this is just for me. We've got to where we are today by those who came before us saying, what's best for those who will come after me? And I don't care if it's the Pittman-Robertson excise tax, if it's the formation of rod and gun clubs, the formation of conservation groups, the list goes on and on and on, that we are in the good old days. Yep. And it didn't happen by accident. And I want to make sure that people have the knowledge to feel successful and confident so that they at least enjoy the experience. Yep. They don't just give up and say, I'll never do that. And as quick as I say that, someone's saying, yeah, if they aren't that committed, let them give up. Yeah. Well, that's all fine and dandy. I look at it differently. I want people to have a good time, and having a little more background and knowledge hopefully makes it a better trip for them.
I'm very realistic that all the information that I've ever put out, that you and I have ever put out collectively, is a lot, but nobody's going to be able to consume it all and go out and be 100% successful every year. Somebody may be able to, not everybody's going to be able to. And I think it's going to be the same people that would have got there anyway. Yeah. We might be shortening the curve and providing them with a more quality experience from the get-go. But overall success rates, they're not going to change.
No, whatever the percentage is, there's the old saying that 20% or 80% of the elk are killed by 20% of the hunters, or 90% are killed, whatever it is. Yep. That's probably going to always be there, just because some people are wired to say, I accept this challenge, I'm going to go do it, and I'm going to make it something that I'm serious about. Yep. And then there's going to be the casual person. And I think about the tips or content that I create, it's content to share some concepts and ideas, but you still got to go out in the woods. You have to apply it. Yeah, and apply it. Yep. And mess it up.
That's like saying that by providing a college education, that everyone's going to be a millionaire and there's not going to be any money for anybody to make anymore because we have all these smart people out doing it. No, it creates more opportunities, and those opportunities continue to increase. We look at what the Elk Foundation's done back east. And as we get more passionate elk hunters from back east that are able to come out here, go on a dream hunt, and realize how incredible elk hunting is, they go back home and now they want to bring elk into their state. We expand elk hunting opportunities, and it continues to grow. And I don't know, Clint, that was a very well thought out question. I don't think he was going down that trail necessarily.
No.
More of our tactics of hunting,
Right.
As far as being aggressive with calling and all of that. Are we educating the elk and making it so that they go farther away and get harder to hunt? Again, with our tactics and everything, I think it all ties in. I don't feel that it's having a negative effect on elk.
No. And if people feel otherwise, I guess they're going to feel that way, and they're probably going to send us a ton of emails saying you guys are a bunch of blankety blanks. And that's
I get
fine.
That. And I'm sure you do.
I mean, at the time, was Jack O'Connor or Jack Ward Thomas, when they were writing all this information about elk hunting or sheep hunting or whatever
books
it is,
and volumes and encyclopedias.
were they ruining or not ruining, but were they having the same consequence that maybe some are concerned about? No, it's every generation has communication technology advancements. And if hunters are just, we're like the rest of society. We're going to use those tools that are available to us to communicate and share information.
And share a passion. I think that's, that sometimes maybe gets lost in the business side of what we do.
Yeah.
That this all boils down to, we're passionate elk hunters.
Yeah.
And we've found a way to etch out a small little living doing what we love and not being selfish with it and wanting to share that so that others will develop that passion and be united with us to be able to stand up with us, because we know that we're a minority in the world.
Yeah.
And even within our own states, Montana and Idaho maybe being somewhat of an exception, but most states that have hunting, hunters are not the majority of the population, and that's scary.
Right. No, I look at hunting, I build this, what I call the aspirational pyramid. And there's no doubt at the very peak of that, itty bitty point of that pyramid are the sheep and moose and goat, and pretty exotic. And even if they're native, they're quite exotic in the idea of ever getting a chance to do it. After that comes elk. And elk is a very aspirational animal, very aspirational hunt experience. I think that we in the hunting community can bring a lot of people together through elk and elk hunting that benefits so many things of public land, public access, conservation of whatever landscape it might be that isn't just for elk. It's for mule deer, for songbirds, for you name it. And anyone who wonders about that, I would suggest go and volunteer for some of these conservation projects. They're a ton of fun. I've done plenty of them, and you meet great people, and you feel like you're really putting your hands in the dirt and getting something done that is tangible for wildlife. Yep. And those kind of things, I don't know how you measure the value of that. And I think, I'm not saying that sharing information results in that directly, but it's helpful to that end and to that cause. And
is there a negative to it? Yeah, you could look at it and see that there is, but is there a positive that far outweighs that negative? And I think will more than fill any void on the negative side? Absolutely.
Yeah, I hope so.
So that's the Sitka question of the week. So,
the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation has their own YouTube channel, and I would suggest everybody go out there and look at it. This playlist that I'm looking at, so the channel is Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, obviously, on YouTube. This playlist is RMEF at Work, and it's a list of all of these access projects that RMEF has done. There's so many of them that, this one here I was just looking at it's called Bull Creek. It's just outside of Grand Junction, Colorado. And Colorado has what's called the Great Outdoors of Colorado. And it's used for access and easements and stuff like that. And this is just another example. I'm trying to remember. I should have looked it up. But the Elk Foundation in Colorado has done a crazy amount of work. What was the total here? Let's see. in Colorado, RMEF has completed 704 conservation and hunting heritage projects, including 2. This one is in Mesa County, with a combined value, and this isn't just RMEF, it's RMEF and the partners that they can leverage, combined value of $161 million. They've conserved and enhanced 438,000 acres, and by conserved and enhanced, that's might be weed spraying, it might be controlled burns, it's improving the habitat. And they've secured access to 108,000 new acres for public access. So I would suggest anybody who wonders what the Elk Foundation does, go out to the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation YouTube channel, grab the playlist called RMEF at Work. And this one here, this Bull Creek project just east of Grand Junction, is a perfect example of it.
Totally.
Some of the other ones we're going to be talking about on future podcasts. I get pretty excited about these because to me, access it's such a critical part of what the future of hunting is dependent upon.
Absolutely.
And to see the Elk Foundation now have at our last board meeting, it said that and there's a formula for how the Forest Service and BLM tell you, okay, this has improved this many acres of access. It's something about drainages and access, motorized access and all this. Their RMEF projects that they've done along with the help of their partners is now at 1.2 million acres of either new or improved public access, which to me, that's a lot of places for elk hunters to put their packs on and grab their bugle tube and head to the hills.
Go out and push elk into the hinterlands.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, Corey, this has been a really good one. I like it when we're able to catch up and do these face-to-face.
Yeah, because our last few have been by phone, and it's good, but we just don't get the interaction.
Right.
You know,
and it's
different.
Just the reality of the craziness of schedules of two guys who are out hunting and volunteering and doing all the things that we do. So
speaking of volunteering, I'm coaching high school boys basketball, and that starts here in just a few minutes. So
I am sorry.
No, we're good. I've been watching the clock here. So
we'll
wrap this up and head to basketball practice.
You head to basketball practice. I'm going to take care of a bunch of CPA business if you don't mind.
That doesn't sound fun at all.
Yeah, because earlier when you said you figured out how to eke a living out of this, I'm waiting until the day I can quit being a CPA and make a living at this.
Yeah. Oh, I feel for you. This time of year, being a CPA is not a good time to be a hunter.
Oh, well. All right, folks. Appreciate you hanging in there. We'll have some more goodies for you here. Lots of
coming
good
up
stuff.
regularly.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, guys.